Kia ora, welcome to the Human Rights Workshop. The reason you're doing this is because you have completed the pre-task about what's been going on in Afghanistan and seen the links that it makes to human rights and how they're being violated at the moment by the Taliban. Now, with this workshop, we're doing a science experiment. So I had said that if you had the ingredients that you could do it too, which is quite cool, but just double check that you've asked your parents because it does use a lot of oil. In this science experiment, we're going to follow the scientific method, which you've used in other workshops, and it's really something that we always like to follow when we're doing science experiments. So the first part of that is questioning. Whenever we do a science experiment, we have a question that we're trying to investigate. So in this case, it is what happens when we mix oil and water and food colouring. That's our big overarching question. Our hypothesis is our prediction. I think that this will happen when they mix together. And then we have our ingredients list or equipment. And in this case, you need oil, a jar with a lid, ideally. Oh, mine smells like pickles. Food colouring, and where's my water? Oh yeah, and water. We then, part of the scientific method, the next thing you follow is the procedure or the method of doing things. So in this case, it says to half fill your jar with oil. I've got quite a large jar, and I have already completed this experiment this morning, so I'm going to not half fill it in this case because I've already used a lot, but I'll put enough in that you can still get a really good indication of what you do and what happens. So we've put in our oil. The next thing is to pour in our water, and I want you to see if you can notice what is happening. So straight away, our oil has sat on the top, it's risen to the top, and the water's gone straight through it. We then add a couple of drops of food colouring. Oh, that was more than a couple. And it's gone straight through to the water. It looks quite cool if you just add a couple of drops, if you've got a bit of dropper. But what you'll notice, I'll give it a bit of a swirl, is that food colouring has mixed straight with the water, and it hasn't mixed with the oil. There's a few little blobs inside. Okay. What you can do is then you can give it a good mix to really mix it up, mix that food colouring up. Alright, so if we've shaken it, the best thing to do is leave it for a little bit. I left it probably for a good 10 minutes, so we can get a really good picture of what has happened. So now we've got the water and the food colouring all down the bottom, and again, that oil all at the top. It's quite satisfying actually. It looks pretty cool when it's like this. So our next part of the scientific method is our observations and results. So what happened? What's the oil doing? What's the water doing? What's the food colouring doing? What happened with the mixing? All these observations and things that you notice from the experiment is what you fill in on the doc. Okay. And then you can kind of, your results, this isn't one where we're measuring anything, it's more based on the observations, but that would come under your results as well. And then once you've completed that on the doc, press submit, and you're good to go for the scientific method side of things. But just quickly, the science behind it, because I know some of you are probably wondering why is it doing that. Oil is a lot less dense than water, so it's going to sit naturally on top, okay, rather than the other way around. All right, because remember when we turn it upside down, okay, see that big blob of oil at the top, okay, and water at the bottom. The reason they don't mix is because Water's actually got polar molecules. It's made of polar molecules, which mean that they bond and mix well with other things that are also polar molecules. So food colouring, that has polar molecules. And oil is non-polar, so it doesn't bond or mix well with other things. You might notice, like, if there's water on the road, and you can see sometimes little blotches of oil from cars, and it sits on top of the puddles. So it's kind of the science behind it. And we thought it would be a good little metaphor for what's actually going on in Afghanistan. You've got the Taliban and the people of Afghanistan, the Afghanis, and they're not mixing well. They're not, you can try to force it and shake it up and try to get it all mixed, but ultimately they end up coming apart and being two separate things. And so this is where we kind of are trying to step in and see what we can do to help, because the Taliban are forcing the Afghanis to do and believe things that align with their beliefs, and they are violating their human rights. So what we've put as a follow-up is that you can write a letter to the Minister of Immigration, the Honourable Chris Farfoy, and you can ask him, basically you've got to persuade him on what he can do to help the refugees that will be coming out of Afghanistan, whether it's New Zealand taking on some more refugees, whether it's sending some aid and help, food, shelter, water, all those kinds of things. And then once you've completed that and you've written a pretty good persuasive letter, then click submit for that, and that's your follow-up. If you've got any questions, make sure you ask us. Otherwise, all the details are on Hapara in the student dashboard, so you should be able to find all the questions and things that you need to answer. And if you give this a go, quite cool. If you've got little brothers or sisters and want to do a cool little experiment and show it to them, nice and easy, but do make sure you get permission from your parents, especially to use all that oil. Right, ka kite anō.